In the 1990s, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air felt like the happiest show on television. A perfect family, endless laughter, and a world where everything always worked out in the end. Yet while the world laughed, some of them were quietly being erased, broken, or pushed out of Hollywood altogether. In 2026, their Then and Now reveals a story that might shock even the biggest fans. Will Smith as Will. Will Smith was born on September 25, 1968 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was just 22 years old when The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990. Cast as a fictionalized version of himself, Smith quickly became the engine of the show, blending street-smart humor, vulnerability, and charisma in a way television had rarely seen. After the show ended, Smith achieved something almost unheard of, a flawless transition from sitcom star to global movie icon. Throughout the late 1990s and 2000s, films like Independence Day, Men in Black, and Ali turned him into one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors. Behind the image, however, cracks began to surface. His marriage to Jada Pinkett Smith became the subject of intense public scrutiny, particularly after revelations of separation, emotional distance, and her acknowledged relationship outside the marriage. The collapse came in 2022. At the Academy Awards, the very night he won his first Oscar, Smith walked on stage and struck comedian Chris Rock. The moment instantly shattered decades of goodwill. Projects were paused, awards rescinded, and the industry that once embraced him stepped back. The incident reframed his legacy overnight, turning admiration into debate. As of 2026, Will Smith is 57 years old. Though he continues to work selectively, his image is no longer untouchable. James Avery as Philip Banks. Born on November 27, 1945 in Suffolk, Virginia, James Avery was 44 years old when The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990. Cast as Philip Banks, the imposing, sharp-tongued judge with an iron exterior and a deeply compassionate heart, Avery became the moral backbone of the series. Unlike many of his co-stars, Avery arrived with a strong theatrical background. Trained in classical acting and voice work, he infused Philip Banks with discipline and restraint rather than broad comedy. The role brought him widespread recognition, yet it also quietly confined him. After Fresh Prince, Hollywood continued to see him primarily as a paternal authority figure, limiting his range on screen despite his considerable talent. Avery worked steadily in television and voice acting, most notably as the voice of Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But he never pursued celebrity in the modern sense. He lived privately, avoided scandal, and rarely spoke about his personal life. In December 2013, James Avery died following complications from open-heart surgery. He was 68 years old. His death sent a quiet shock through a generation that had grown up seeing him as more than a character, but as a symbol of stability, discipline, and unconditional love. Janet Hubert as Vivian Banks. Janet Hubert was born on January 13, 1956, in Chicago, Illinois. She was 34 years old when The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air debuted in 1990. Cast as the original Vivian Banks, she brought intellectual authority and emotional strength to the role, grounding the comedy with discipline and credibility. Behind the scenes, however, tensions were building. By the end of Season 3, Hubert exited the series under deeply contentious circumstances. She later stated that unfavorable contract terms left her feeling financially constrained and professionally controlled, limiting her ability to accept outside work. What might have remained a private dispute instead escalated into a public rupture, fueled by creative disagreements and a growing power imbalance on set. The conflict became deeply personal. For nearly 3 decades, Hubert and Will Smith were locked in a very public feud. Hubert accused Smith of deliberately undermining her reputation, labeling her difficult, a stigma she believed contributed to her being quietly blacklisted in Hollywood. As major roles disappeared, her career slowed dramatically, marked by financial strain and long periods of professional invisibility. Resolution came unexpectedly in 2020. During the Fresh Prince 30th anniversary reunion, Hubert and Smith confronted their past in an emotional, unscripted exchange. Smith acknowledged his role in the conflict, while Hubert expressed regret for her own harsh words. Tears, apologies, and reconciliation followed, closing a chapter that had defined her public narrative for years. As of 2026, Janet Hubert continues working in theater and independent projects. Her story stands as one of Hollywood's most painful behind-the-scenes tragedies, but also one of its rarest endings. Accountability, healing, and hard-won dignity restored. Alfonso Ribeiro as Carlton Banks. Born on September 21, 1971, in New York City, Alfonso Ribeiro was just 19 when The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990. Cast as Carlton Banks, he turned the conservative, privileged cousin into one of television's most instantly recognizable characters. The role defined Ribeiro completely. While audiences embraced Carlton's catchphrases and signature dance, Hollywood struggled to see the actor beyond the character. After Fresh Prince ended in 1996, leading roles failed to materialize. Ribeiro continued working steadily in television, voice acting, and hosting, but the transition to dramatic or adult roles proved nearly impossible. Ribeiro's first marriage ended in divorce, a period he later described as emotionally destabilizing, while he was also navigating professional uncertainty. He reinvented himself as a television host, most notably on America's Funniest Home Videos, and reintroduced himself to audiences through reality competition shows, including Dancing with the Stars, where nostalgia worked in his favor rather than against him. Now in 2026, Alfonso Ribeiro is 54 years old. His career stands as a case study in typecasting's long-term impact, a reminder that instant cultural immortality can be both a blessing and a professional prison. Karyn Parsons as Hilary Banks. Karyn Parsons, born on October 8, 1966 in Los Angeles, California, was 24 years old when The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990. Cast as Hilary Banks, the fashionable and seemingly shallow eldest daughter, Parsons brought intelligence and precision to a role designed to parody privilege. After The Fresh Prince ended in 1996, Parsons struggled to find roles of equal visibility. Hollywood repeatedly funneled her toward variations of the same archetype: pampered, superficial, and unserious, leaving little room for growth or reinvention. Rather than fight an industry determined to flatten her range, she made a conscious decision to step back. Parsons redirected her creative energy toward writing. She began authoring young adult and children's books centered on positive, empowering stories about Black identity, history, and self-worth. Writing offered her control that acting no longer did, ownership of narrative, voice, and purpose. That purpose found its clearest expression in Sweet Blackberry, the non-profit organization she founded to share African American history through animated films and books. In 2026, Karyn Parsons is 60 years old, remains largely removed from Hollywood, remembered not only for Hilary Banks, but for choosing meaning over visibility in an industry that rarely rewards such restraint. Tatyana Ali as Ashley Banks. Born on January 24, 1979, in North Belmore, New York, Tatyana Ali was only 11 years old when The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990. Cast as Ashley Banks, the youngest member of the family, she grew up in front of millions of viewers, evolving from an innocent child into a poised young woman over the show's 6-season run. As the series progressed, Ali struggled to separate her real identity from the character audiences expected her to remain. After Fresh Prince ended, she pursued music and released an R&B album in the late 1990s. But the transition away from child stardom proved difficult. Public expectations remained fixed on the version of Ashley they remembered, limiting how seriously her adult ambitions were taken. In 2017, A legal dispute involving songwriting credits briefly drew unwanted attention, reinforcing how quickly public narratives could shift from nostalgia to controversy. Though the matter was resolved, it marked another moment where pressure overshadowed progress. By 2016, Ali married academic Vaughn Raspberry, and motherhood reshaped her priorities. Rather than chase constant visibility, she focused on family, education, and selective creative work. As of 2026, Tatyana Ali is 47 years old, remembered as one of television's most recognizable child stars. And as a reminder of how fame, when it arrives too early, can quietly complicate adulthood rather than define it. Joseph Marcell as Jeffrey Butler. Joseph Marcell was born on August 14, 1948, in St. Lucia, was 42 years old when The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990. Cast as Jeffrey Butler, the impeccably dry-witted British butler, Marcell brought Shakespearean timing and theatrical discipline to a role that could have easily slipped into stereotype. Despite his popularity with audiences, the role became a quiet limitation. American television rarely knew what to do with a classically trained black British actor, and Marcell found himself overlooked for substantial screen roles after Fresh Prince. The industry's narrow casting lens reduced him to the butler, overshadowing the depth of his training and range. In 1972, Marcell joined the prestigious Royal Shakespeare Company, a rare achievement for a black actor at the time. Yet television fame would later obscure his theatrical depth. In 2013, Marcell shattered long-standing barriers by becoming one of the first actors of color to play a leading role in a major British production of King Lear. As of 2026, Joseph Marcell continues to work primarily in theater, living largely outside the American spotlight. Daphne Maxwell Reed as Vivian Banks. Daphne Maxwell Reed, born on July 13, 1948 in New York City, was 44 years old when she joined The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in 1993, stepping into the role of Vivian Banks after a highly publicized recasting. Taking over as Aunt Viv in Season 4, Reed inherited one of television's most scrutinized roles, entering a show already defined by audience loyalty and behind-the-scenes controversy. Unlike her predecessor, Reed portrayed Vivian Banks with a softer, more maternal energy. Her interpretation emphasized warmth and domestic stability over intellectual sharpness, a creative shift that reflected changes in the show's tone as it leaned more heavily into broad comedy. While her performance was steady and professional, the circumstances surrounding her casting ensured that comparisons were unavoidable, and often unfair. The recasting itself became a defining shadow over Reed's tenure. Many viewers associated the change with the abrupt departure of Janet Hubert, and resentment toward the decision frequently spilled onto Reed, despite her lack of involvement in the original conflict. Rather than being judged on her own merits, she was often framed as a symbol of replacement, a position that limited recognition of her work. After Fresh Prince, Reed continued acting in television and film, though without the same level of visibility. Her career remained consistent but understated, shaped less by scandal than by the long tail of a decision she did not make. In 2026, Daphne Maxwell Reed is 78 years old, remembered as the woman who stepped into an impossible role, and carried it with grace under circumstances few actors would willingly face. DJ Jazzy Jeff as Jazz. Jeffrey Allen Towns was born on January 22, 1965, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was 25 years old when The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered in 1990. Appearing as Jazz, Will's perpetually unlucky best friend, DJ Jazzy Jeff brought streetwise authenticity and musical credibility to the series. Before television fame, Towns was already half of the groundbreaking duo DJ Jazzy Jeff and The Fresh Prince. Their success in music laid the foundation for Will Smith's rise, but it also carried unresolved tension. In 1990, the group's original third member, Reddy Roxy, Clarence Holmes, departed, and later filed a lawsuit alleging breach of contract. The legal dispute threatened to fracture the group's early legacy, but the court ultimately ruled in favor of Townes and Smith, closing the case without lasting legal damage. As Will Smith's career exploded into film superstardom, Townes chose a quieter path, focusing on production, live performance, and mentorship, rather than visibility. While his presence on Fresh Prince remained comic relief, his real influence unfolded behind the scenes, shaping artists and sound rather than headlines. As of 2026, DJ Jazzy Jeff is 61 years old. He remains an active and respected figure in hip-hop, known for longevity rather than controversy. Nia Long as Lisa Wilkes. Born on October 30th, 1970 in Brooklyn, New York, Nia Long was 21 years old when she joined the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in 1991 as Lisa Wilkes, Will's most serious and emotionally grounded love interest. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, Long built a solid career in film and television with projects such as Boys in the Hood, Love Jones, and the Best Man franchise. She became one of Hollywood's most recognizable black actresses, praised for consistency rather than spectacle. Her personal life later eclipsed her professional narrative. In 2022, Long's long-term relationship with NBA coach Ime Udoka collapsed publicly after his workplace misconduct scandal became national news. Though she was not involved in the controversy, the fallout placed her private pain under intense public scrutiny, turning a deeply personal betrayal into a media spectacle. As of 2026, Nia Long is 55 years old. She continues acting selectively, carrying a career marked by endurance rather than excess. More than 3 decades later, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air still feels like a warm memory. But the lives behind its laughter reveal stories shaped by pressure, conflict, loss, and survival. Time changed their paths, but not their impact on a generation that grew up with them. Which journey stayed with you the most? Share your thoughts below, and follow along as we continue uncovering the untold stories behind television's most beloved families.